Good afternoon, Justin O'Keefe from Talent Force Recruitment here. Today we'd like to talk about different forms of part-time or flexible working that are available. It's really interesting as the workplace has developed that the traditional 9 to 5 cookie cutter approach that we're all used to, we all grew up with, and perhaps started our careers with, really has moved on. And it's hard to say that there are certain rules for certain industries or for certain sorts of roles, but we'll certainly have a quick discussion of the types of roles that we find employers are looking at. So first up, we would talk about traditional part-time working. What does that look for a career relaunch or for a parent going back to work? That would typically mean working 5 mornings, working 3 days. It's an arrangement where you work less and agree less than the traditional 39-hour week. We would see this as common across many industries. Part-time working often works in certain sorts of roles, perhaps internal client facing rather than external client facing. So there are many companies that hire part-time bookkeepers, marketing, HR, very much a support function, but it's hard to have a fixed view on it. So part-time working in whatever shape and form that looks. It could be 4-day week, work 4-day week. It just literally depends on the business requirements. Second thing would be shift working. You get many companies, could be a shopping center, could be a cleaning company, could be a restaurant, who just require people to work, very much different sorts of hours. Could be technical support. Apple working from home, that sort of role. Second sort is staggered working. So traditionally, businesses would say that they have core business hours. So their core business hours could be 10 to 3, 11 to 4, 11 to 2. It really, again, it very much depends on the business. So a business might be open to flexible working where you don't work traditional 9 to 5. If their core business hours are 11 to 3, you might start at 11 and work through. So it's really the hours are all set, but focused around very much meeting the needs of the business. Fourth up, we would say is freelance or contract work. Now, freelance or contract work is typically where you take responsible for paying your own tax, your own PRSI, you invoice the company, typically at an hourly rate for the work or a piece rate for the work that you have done. You are entirely responsible for your own PRSI, VAT, all that. So the company just pays an invoice, normally submit on a monthly basis. So you're responsible for all of that. And that involves absolutely more complexity, perhaps use of an accountant. Fifth up, we would say is remote working. So some people kind of mix this with other working. So it's working from home, it's working in an office somewhere, but not based centrally in a head office or an office, that sort of thing. Sixth up, we would say would be compressed working. So you work the same hours, you work 4 days, or you get 5 days work done. You just don't take the breaks. You compress it. Perhaps you work longer days and get your 39 hours a week done in 4 days. What we're seeing quite a lot of, unusually, is annualized working, where typically people will work. Actually, some friends of mine have this, where they work a 4-day week. They will take 1 day off, perhaps 2 half days off. Those are agreed, and they change their entire terms and conditions of employment, holidays, pensions, everything to reflect this. So you're hired on 80% of 39 hours. Seeing this coming through quite strongly, but it's often a changed permanent salary draw. Perhaps a bit more common in the public sector, perhaps more in the private. Perhaps as time moves on, we'll see that change. But job sharing. So teachers often do this. Someone works morning, someone works afternoon. And from a company perspective, there's more management of HR and HR issues. So not that common in the private sector that we'd see. Next up, second last, will be 0 hour contracts, where essentially you are paid to come in and you paid for the hours that you work. It's fully flexible, and there's pros and cons to that. Gets a bit of a bad rep, particularly in the UK, where there's a lot of minimum wage retail workers who really have no job security. But it very much depends on your conditions, on your own conditions, your skill, what you're trying to achieve. So 0 hour contract may just work for you. It has the flexibility. During summertime, maybe it ramps down, and maybe during the year, the school year, is a little bit busier. And the last we would say is term only work, where you essentially work during the college or the school year, and it ramps down during the summer. So teachers would be term only to work. Not very common in the private sector. So those we would see as the main options around flexible working for you to think about. Some of those you would say absolutely no way. I don't want to do contract. I don't want to do freelance. I want something a bit more secure. So we would say to people as they look at what are the sorts of roles that would suit them, to really consider that what flavor of flexible working that you would like. And all of us have different skills, different childcare issues, different professional background. So this is something that we would strongly suggest people analyse and think through. So hope that's of benefit, and look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.